All right, welcome to the Sales Docket. Tim Garner, Steve Rapp, are here to introduce Ted Anger. Ted Anger is an old colleague of ours, very special human being. Probably when Tim and I spoke, and when we started really researching the Sales Docket, we're like, who's one of the best salespeople we've ever come across? And Mr. Anger, your name came up multiple times. So, thanks for joining us.
You
Um,
must have had a small list of people you were thinking
very,
about.
very small, Ted. Very small.
I believe
Um,
it.
just as a recap, Ted, this is really focused on kind of next generation getting some really good sales gems on it. You've got you're a storyteller, so we can't wait to hear some of your stories. But again, let's kick this off. Love to hear a little bit about. Give us your background. I mean, you started in the legal space with us back in the day. You're now a realtor in Nashville, Tennessee, killing it. So, give us a little bit more of a scoop on what you're doing in the transition, and a little bit more about Teddy Anger.
All right. I
And it's a G-rated show.
I promise
No,
to
it's
keep it
not.
that way.
That's
I'm worried
bullshit.
about you guys. I'm worried about me.
Yeah, that's true. That's right. Yeah, you
That's
gotta worry
right.
about
So
that.
Timmy does
yeah.
send out a lot of the F words, but
Listen,
we'll try to keep it at a minimum.
you guys have an edit. You can edit things.
There's no editing on
Um,
this.
yeah. So I listen. I still remember the last time I was in the city. I was walking around. I saw that ridiculous red, white, and blue building on 54th Street that I interviewed out of. Crazy. I'm walking past it. I'm like, Scott Goodson, Bennett Phelps had me in an office up on. I just remember walking in and going, I'm interviewing in some dude's apartment, man. I was getting ready for like a black bag to be shoved over my head, and I remember him telling me about the opportunity. And honestly, I'm going to make photocopies for law firms. I mean, this sounded like the craziest thing I had ever heard. And but anyway, after meeting with the guys and talking to different reps around the country, I was like, oh, people are making a career out of this. I mean, this is legit. And so anyway, fast forward, I took the job, I think, in December of '93, maybe. And I had about a year and a half of sales experience under my belt. I sold long distance back in the day when that was a thing, before we had, phones taking care of everything. And literally, bang, going to the top floor of a building, 1385 Broadway, go to the 60th floor, bang on 12 doors, a floor, work your way down. And honestly, I loved it. I loved it because it was complete Wild West craziness, people cursing at you, calling the cops, get out of my office, like losing their minds. And plus, it was during a recession at that time. I mean, the city was in a recession, so people were not always in a good mood. And so you got lit up a lot, but we would go back, and our office was in Penn Station. So we would go down and meet at Beefsteak Charlie's back when that place was around and tell war stories. So after a year and a half of that craziness, I was with a group of guys. Everyone did really well. There was other opportunities opening up. And so a lot of the guys in the telecommunications world, like AT&T, MCI, Sprint, all those guys, they wanted to hire all the AllNet guys because they were known as these aggressive, well trained kind of they'll kick down doors type of thing. But what they offered was not really, there wasn't a huge upside. I didn't feel like personally. So then I found about this company Knight Rider. I'm like the TV show. And so anyway, fast forward, I do the interview, go there. I call guys around the country. I'm like, wow, this is a real thing. And then let the games begin, right? We started this thing in February of '94. They said, here's your office. There's wires hanging down from the ceiling. Nothing's completed in the office yet. They send us to Pittsburgh to do production training. And I'm like, I went to college 4 years. I have sales experience, and I'm working a 1090 like a lunatic, making photocopies. I'm QCing documents. I'm like, what am I doing, man? And but it seemed like a good opportunity. The training was intense, and then they had us doing the cards, right? So we had to memorize the 20 cards. And
Mhm.
literally, I just every night for 3 hours with guys going back and another thing about my company, another thing about my company, and we're all throwing these cards around. But I mean, it was an intense. It's a foxhole mentality, right? I mean, you're in there together, and there was eight. I mean, Kaplan was there. I mean, it was like eight of us, I think, when we first started. And then when they came back, came back to the city. We had another round of training. Oh God, I'm gonna lose. Alvin O'Neill shows up. I mean, Kaplan and I could tell stories just about that. You guys probably know about the poor guy went crazy in the middle of training.
Thank- Uh,
Yeah, so there was never a shortage of stories, but next thing you know, we're starting this office up, and so I was felt like I was blessed to do two startups. One was as an account manager, the other one was as an AMP, for the
yeah.
financial district. So, just I mean, God, we could sit here and talk for. I mean, we're not going to, but we could talk for hours on that. So, but I worked, AMP, and then I got an opportunity to when the national accounts program started blowing up at Icon. At that point, it was Icon, and so it was a district director role. So basically, the Northeast guys in Boston, New York, Jersey, Jumpin' Joe Regis, the crowd, Pittsburgh, DC. So Dave Wilson, just a group of guys, great group of guys. And then I did that until 2002, until I moved to Tennessee. Totally different world, more in the marketing, public relations in a company down here. And then I switched over to real estate in 2020. So my wife, Candace, started in 2019. She was doing amazing. So I joined her in 2020. And so that's the 25-cent version.
I love it. I love it. So Ted,
So,
go ahead, Timmy G.
well, I gotta tell the story, right? And so we had Kaplan on, who absolutely loved Kaplan, and Ted, love you as well. The funniest thing was I remember my interview, and we had that long hall down 641
Oh, yeah.
Lexington. And this is no disrespect to anyone else who was a account manager there, but I only remember you and Steve. I remember I went down in every hall, and I'm like, okay, that guy's good. Okay, okay. And I'm like, oh, wow, this guy's sharp. And I remember going on a field ride with you to go see Laurel Lambert. And
Yeah,
I
Laurel.
remember watching you. I'm like, this motherfucker is smooth. So the question I got to ask, and I'm going to ask it simply because your charisma, dude, is off the charts. I think we all have our own uniqueness about us. But I talked about it earlier, how you used to hold court in the CSR office and everybody would watch you. For the younger people out there, I think charisma is natural. But is there anything that you credit yourself or credit to getting to be this confident person that could talk in front of anybody, could walk in front of anybody, could do anything? Because everyone doesn't have that ability. I feel as though I can talk to 1,000 people in a room, but can't sing a lick. Everyone has their specialties. What is it about you that you could share with the younger group about how you built this confidence and become who you are now, man?
Great question.
I had bills to pay. And so it's called "This is due at the end of the month." So I think part of it is natural ability. I mean, just how you grew up. You know what I mean? My parents, my house growing up. They call Chicago the Windy City. My house was like a wind advisory. Everybody was trying to get a line in. You know what I mean? So we learned that we had to speak the loudest, you know what I mean, to get a point across. So I think there's just there is a natural ability to be able to, to connect with people. But I will tell you this, and I could tell you that when I had that job, I was super grateful for the opportunity, and I wanted to make the best of it. I had my dad's, voice in the back of my head. And he always said, look, Ted, you may not be the smartest guy in the room. You may not be, you may not have the most gifts in the room or whatever. You may not be the best at anything in the room. He said, but you can be the hardest worker in the room. And so that's one thing that you can do. You can't control a couple other things, but you can control that. And so anyway, I feel like when I had the opportunity, funny story, because we're talking about Kaplan, we had a sales manager, God rest his soul, and he
Baker.
Yeah, he had his own way like I've never met anybody else. And so partially it was like trying to intimidate. The other part was trying to get you to work, because we were doing 80 hours a week, and some of it was very necessary, some of it was completely unnecessary.
Jumping jacks in front of City Corp,
yeah. So we're doing jumping jacks at the second busiest subway station in New York City. I'm 2 years out of school, so I'm like looking out like what kids did I go to school with? What kids did I grow up with? They're like looking at me, like I was grateful to say it never happened. But of course, everybody in the train station is like, who are these imbeciles jumping up and down, in the train station? And I remember Steve stopping one day. He's like, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. And so a couple of the older guys like, we're going to go in and we're going to talk to, Scott Goodson, and this isn't right. We're not doing it. I'm like, I got rent to pay. I got bills, man. What do you need me to do? I'm like, jumping jacks. You need to do push-ups. There. What do we do? Which we did, by the way, if you remember. So I feel like a lot of it had to do with gratitude. You know what I mean? And just like I being thankful for the opportunity that I had. So I think having that pressure on my back a little bit was very helpful, because I knew that this was not something that I could loaf around and like, oh, let me see how this goes.
Right.
I didn't have my parachute would have been like humbling myself and moving back into my parents' house on Long Island, which I wasn't going to do. You know what I mean? So you'd have seen me outside selling like handbags or whatever on the corner. You know what I mean? Picking up my towel, running down the street. I would have figured out a way, but I wasn't doing that. So I do think part of it is natural. Naturally, certain people are never going to be completely comfortable with just being able to carry it on. But to me, it was more like I was grateful, and I knew that this was an opportunity, and I wasn't about to blow it thinking that there was something better on the other side of the street. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
Ted,
love that.
quick question for you. So you were selling kind of international phone stuff, and then you switched to attorneys. Did that? What was the pivot like on that one, right? Because completely different clientele. I
Oh
mean,
my
very
God.
polished, very. I mean, you walk into a law firm, it's a little bit more conservative than Ted Anger, right? Like,
Right.
and I remember, from my past, thankful, I had a one of my good friends I grew up with who became an attorney, right? There were times calling a partner in a law firm was really intimidating. Like you sat there and you're like, oh my God, this is a partner in a big firm. There was a barrier that mentally I had until I really looked at my friend one day and I'm like, he's a human. He's like my friend, but he's a
Right.
high level attorney in a law firm. They're all people, right? And that kind of got rid of this barrier.
Yeah.
For you, what was that change like? Like when I mean, again, more conservative environment. Ted, you've got a pretty big personality. How did you adjust?
I mean, at the end of the day, so to your point, 100%. So when I was selling the long distance, I was doing a lot of like these are small businesses. These were mom and pop shops. I was selling to some old timer down in the printing district on Varick Street. Then all of a sudden I was up in the textiles, in the garment center. These were all smaller businesses, very easy access to get in the door because you were just walking in. You know what I
Right.
mean? It wasn't like the gatekeeper may start yelling at you, but you were already in the door. You know what I mean? So to your point, I think at the end of the day, when you realize that everybody puts their pants on one leg at a time, you know what I mean? And if you believe in what you have, if you don't believe in what you have, you probably shouldn't be doing it. But if you believe, like, I know I can help somebody, I know I can help these people. They may not know it yet, but I know I can help them. So I think I always had that in the back of my mind. Like, I definitely know I can help these people. I know we're going to provide better service. I knew living on at the time I was living on 85th Street. Yeah, no. I was living. I think when we first started, I was down on Lexington and 26th. I'm like, I knew if somebody called me at 10 o'clock at night, I was going to be there. I knew that I would be very close to the project, that I was going to make sure that the best possible job could be done. So I already knew when I called somebody that I knew I had a better service, whether or not they wanted to hear from me that in that moment, that was another story. So I think I was very confident in what we were doing. I did feel like we were different from the crowd. So I felt like that helped me when I got on the phone. And there's some crazy stories, but I remember getting on the phone with the CEO. This was all accidental. He was so upset when he realized that I made it through to his phone, but it was just the CEO of Citicorp at the time, Charles Prince. I don't even know who the CEO is at the time, but somebody pushed my call to him, and I'm here pitching like like how we can help out at document productions. He's like, how the hell did you get my number? So like, but I didn't care. I had him on the phone. I heard him answer the phone, and I'm like, oh, I'm talking to the CEO of one of the largest corporations in the world. But I'm like, I'm going to go for it right now. I'm like, I got him. Obviously the phone call didn't last too long, but to the point is, if you got to get over that fear. You know what I mean? And I do feel like as crazy as that drill that we had of learning those cards, to me, there were so many lines I had drilled in the back of my head. And of course you would massage them a little bit and change things up a little bit, but it was drilled about what our advantages were with the company. And so I always knew I had a line in the back. Yeah, preparation to me is huge. Yep. Preparation is huge. If you're not prepared, don't jump on the phone, because I learned that in real estate, because I just boom, hey, get ready to jump on the phone. And I was talking to this builder one day, and I had no idea what I was talking about. And the guy was hilarious. If it was in New York, I would have been cursed out 50 times, but he had a little bit more, he was a little kind to this guy.
Yeah,
Listen, why don't you call me back when you know what you're talking about? Click. So what I do, I went and found out everything about what's important to the builders, how much they're willing to pay per lot, what utilities are going to cost, drag and stuff. I mean, I learned it. So now when I'm on the phone, I'm not fumbling with my words. I'm prepared. So I think preparation, there's always a natural skill level, but I think if you're super prepared and you feel like what you have to bring to the table is important to these people, I think it helps with confidence.
Yeah, I think with any good salesperson, being a chameleon helps. Like we talk about your personality and how you used to hold court, but you could always switch it up at any time, right? So I think that's important for the younger group to hear, that no matter who you are, you got to play your audience, right? Yeah. So what are some of the things that you've done, along the lines, even in your new career, just to adjust to, buyers and personal, selling of homes and things of that nature? What are some of the things to do that you prepare yourself to, be able to speak to the different groups?
I mean, read the room. I mean, I helped a friend of mine's son just buy a starter, condo, and we're listing almost a $4 million property, with a bunch of acreage, totally different clientele. I just think, what do you want if you're in that situation, right? Say you're a young kid and you're figuring out how to make your first transaction, as opposed to somebody who's, just a little savvier. They've been around the block. They kind of know things. You have to read the room. If you go in and approach them the same way, the older person's going to get insulted and the younger one's going to be overwhelmed. So I feel like, and we used to hear this all the time, when we were at Icon together, but start with the end in mind, right? And they drilled that line down with us all the time. So when I looked at a young guy who doesn't really know the process, doesn't understand appraisals and inspections, and doesn't understand contingencies and all this type of thing, and how we can approach this deal and how maybe we can get it over somebody else who's got a pretty good offer in as well. Just taking the time and walking them through, because I know this is going to help this guy through this process. So I feel like right away they feel like that you care about them, you know what I mean, and where they're at in their life. And the same thing with the savvier person. I don't need to go in there and repeat all the things that they already know. I need to find out what's the most important thing to them right now. And, obviously in real estate, typically it's, hey, I want to get the most for my house and with the least amount of hassles. But in that least amount of hassles, there's a whole book you can write in there. And so getting to what's really important to people, and figuring them out. But and I do think, and this is not a New York thing, but I feel like growing up in New York was extremely helpful, because the cast of lunatics and different mindsets, and because to your point, like, how am I going to have a conversation with this guy and make a connection right away? I got to figure it out. You know what I mean? Right. And so I think it helped growing up, all the different kinds of people you'd meet, and you study them a little bit and you read the room and you try to figure out, like, I want to connect with this person. I cannot go in with, hey, I've got my A, this is my A game. This is my A plan right now. I'm going in there with everybody like that. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Laurel Lambert where was she from? Houston, right? I mean, like,
Houston, Texas, yeah.
A guy from New York and this woman from Houston, and we were best friends, So, so anyway, I do think if you're thinking what's important to these people and what do they need to get out of this right now, and how can I connect with them? I mean, we all grew up with this. Hey, look for the fishing picture in the background, all that kind of stuff. But it's hokey. But at the same time, if you can find a way to connect, And
Yes.
a lot of times it's not on the first go round. It's when you first meet them and you remember something about them, or they told you something, or you do your research, and then you figure out a way to kind of get it in there. We're going over that with my son right now. He's out selling office equipment and office technology, and so it's kind of fun talking about these things at night. Keeps it fresh.
That's awesome.
So I know, and just going back to our days, right? There was always a sales book we had to read. There was always, I think clearly, naturally, there's some people who can read a room who have that. I think there are books that have helped us. I don't know, I always try to, I think I mentioned this like 3 times in the last couple of weeks with these young kids about who moved my cheese, like how industries.
I was just literally going to say that to you.
Right? How industries change and just being able to pivot on that. Was there any book? Was there any mentor? Was there anything that you remember from your career that was just like really from a learning standpoint, not natural, like where you had to kind of read about it, whatever it was that helped you along the way on that end?
I think you just said who moved my cheese. That was literally what was in my head, because I think the toughest thing for people a lot of times is change.
Yes.
And you have the set way of, oh, wait, this is how it's been going, and this is how it needs to keep going. But it can change at any minute, and we knew that. The one thing I loved about working there is we weren't spoiled. You know what I mean? We were pushing megliners down the street. It was 95 degrees, sweating beads. Like you got to come back to the office and change half the time. You know what I mean? And or hey, I need you to jump in a van and go to some warehouse in Queens or Jersey. And I was like, okay, here I go again. I'm like, what am I doing for a living here? But I love
suit and tie, by the way.
Suit and tie and hard shoes.
Suit and tie shoes back before they were like the comfortable ones. There
was no Skechers back then.
Yeah, 100%.
No, I had. No, I came home when I bought those cheap shoes because I didn't have any money, and I came home with blood on my feet. I mean, that was legit.
I remember seeing. Yeah, that was horrible.
For real. No, listen. This is G-rated, but a little on the grosser side. So after walking like 8 miles a day in those uncomfortable shoes, I feel like I had pads on my feet, like bear claw, you know what I mean? Like bear paws or something. So my buddy goes, hey man, let's go get a pedicure. We'll fix your feet up. So I'm like, all right. So I go in there, and this nice Russian lady's working on my foot, and she pulls out the razor, right? And I go, what are you doing with the razor? She's like, I'm gonna get the dead skin off your feet. I don't even know if they allow this stuff anymore. Anyway, she shaved my foot. It looked like a snowstorm on the floor, and I put my shoe back on. I felt like I lost a shoe size. I was like, my shoes are loose. So, to your point, we walked a lot, and it was back before, we had these really nice, comfortable dress shoes. So we just weren't spoiled. We weren't. Yeah. We always knew that we knew something crazy could happen, or we knew that we could be called in at midnight, or we knew that we could be. And that didn't change, by the way, because when I was A&P in financial, I was driving out to Jersey, and then we were desperate for work. I'm like, I got it. Get in the van. I'm like the sales manager, and I'm going up to pick up MetLife slop from O'Leary.
Yeah. So that's a great point.
Yeah,
it is. So, I mean, it also brings the next question I have is that you pretty young, you made the jump from sales into sales management, right? And so you had a job to hire salespeople. Like, were there any character traits, anything that were important to you that you were looking for in a salesperson?
So learn behavior. You talked about that before, and I kind of felt like when I was at work, I was a little bit more of an eternal optimist, kind of glass half full most of the time. So they hired the sales team, and half of them were hired before I became the A&P, because Mitch was supposed to move down with Tom, and anyway that didn't last, and so then that was me. Yeah. So then so they hired me. So I inherited a team, and then I had to hire a few more people. Well, I'm out with them, and I could tell who had the great attitudes and who didn't. But I kind of really didn't know how to approach the whole situation other than stay on people. But so Jack Conway comes down to visit me, and he's like, hey, Ted, look, here's the deal. I'm going to give you a couple of names of people that shouldn't be here in 2 months, and you figure it out. And he basically was asking me to take our sales team from 7 to 3. And he said, until you do that, the office will not flourish. Right. So I really just made sure I was available to go out on a regular basis.
Mhm.
And if you don't want if you don't want accountability with your activity, you weren't going to want to be in our office. And so basically we ended up losing 4 people in 2 months. And on that third month, our sales doubled with half the team. And so it was a huge learning experience for me as a manager. That attitude was like, if you have a person who's incredibly skilled, but they have a horrible attitude and they're super negative in the office, I'd rather have somebody that had moderate skills but had a fantastic attitude and a hard work ethic, because you can teach the skills. If their heart and their attitude is right, you can teach them that. But if somebody's completely negative and negative on the office, it's such a cancer. It's such a tear down for the whole place. So the personality traits, obviously you wanted somebody that could interact with people, but at the same time, and you wanted some people with sales experience, but you wanted a great attitude. And I remember also behavioral interviewing kind of helping draw that out of people, because you're asking them about a time that was very difficult and how to, tell me about how your boss handled it. And it was like, oh, that guy's a jerk. I'm like, see ya, on the resume. So, it was pretty quick. You could get to the point pretty quick. Within a half hour, you can, sometimes within 5 minutes, you can realize, hey, is this person, especially with what we all were going through, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like technology started changing, all that kind of stuff. We're like, you got to figure somebody who can roll with the changes, because it's constant.
Yeah, and not the victim mentality, right?
Alexa, you're being filmed.
Thanks for showing up. That was awesome. But Ted, it's also the victim, right? The one that it's never his fault and doesn't take ownership, which is just a pure pet peeve of mine in anybody, just general character fault. Is when you're interviewing someone and this happened, but there's no accountability on that, and that drives me nuts too.
Yeah. I think it helped with us with what we went through as well, because come on. I mean, how many we got lit up by attorneys and paralegals? There was always mistakes, no matter how good you try to do it. There was always something. And you realize, look, I'm so sorry. Like, what do I need to make this right immediately? This is my fault. I mean, you just took ownership immediately. And so, look, you might go home and give the shift manager a little business, but it wasn't because nothing was wrong. I did that. And especially if you made the mistake, God forbid you made a mistake on instructions and all that kind of stuff. So, So, I mean, you just take ownership. But I agree with you 100%. Victims are never going to go that far in this world. They're just not.
No.
So,
all right.
Yeah, but so just one, and then you can ask the final question, Rap. But I don't know if I learned this from you, Ted, or it was a conversation with me, you, and Kaplan. But when we used to have to go through these law firms, we were all younger guys, well dressed, sharp guys doing our thing. And I don't know if it was you said that you had to learn to put your tail between your legs when you walk through these law firms, because some of these lawyers took kind of, like, not offense, but like, what are you doing in our domain? Right. And it was just one of those things that I think I learned that from you, where it was like you almost had to bring it down a level when you were in the firms to talk to people, to set meetings, and to do things, because you were being watched by other, for lack of a better term, alpha males. So, but yeah, no, I remember that. So,
well, I learned pretty quickly never to wear a purple suit into the office, because my fucking anger was calling me Barney for the next 2 weeks.
That's because I loved you, man.
And then there was the time I wore a blazer and khaki pants, and he started on his Thurston Howell. You remember that? Give us a little bit of that, Thurston. I mean, that was.
I think I called you Country Club for a day. I forgot. You guys walked in. You there's only 2 people that did the sports code. It was you and Regis did it one time.
Regis.
And you both paid for it, man.
Oh, we did.
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty cutthroat back at. That was a beauty also. I will tell you, and Tim and I have talked about this, right? Just from a cultural standpoint, the fact that we grew up and started in sales at a time and in an office with very large personalities. And it was trenches. I mean, you mentioned this before, right? It was just you were in the trenches with this group of people, and there's the connection and the love and the learning and all of that that comes along with that. But we were, I mean, I look back at what we did, and I try to explain that to my children now. Like, I was going down Third Avenue with 16 boxes on a mag line and pushing people out. I mean, they're like, what?
Yeah. No,
It was it was definitely an incredible learning experience for all of us, I think, right? I mean, it gave us the roots that's grown into the trees that we are today. So I think we could probably talk to you for the next hour. I just don't know if we have the time. So I think one of the questions, Ted, that we always ask at kind of towards the end of this is, when you look back at your career, right? Was there a defining moment that pivoted your career for you? Like, was there something? Was it a mentor telling you something? Was it an opportunity that popped up that just changed the projectile of your life?
You know, if, from a business perspective, I would say it was probably working at Icon, and I don't, I guess I can't pin it down to a moment or a conversation or anything like that. You know what I mean? Because we all had tons of conversations that were impactful, you know, for all of us. But I think seeing it played out in the sense that, hey, you know, if I had a good attitude and I worked hard there, I was gonna have opportunity, you know,
Mm.
to grow. And it proved out for me. So it was one of those things. I mean, I'm sure people get into dead end situations and it can be very frustrating. But you got to give it time before you know. I mean, if the dead end is you, then it's you. You know what I'm saying? But
Right.
if you're looking around you and you're watching people, you know, move up or get better opportunities, and I feel like we were all blessed with that at Icon. And I mean, look at us. Like, we've all known each other over 30 years. We're still talking on Zooms and all this kind of stuff. I think the combination of the hard work and the combination of the opportunity that it gave us, because all of you guys have gone on to be very successful. I could sit here and, obviously Satriano lives, lives next door to me. I mean, lives down the block now. So, I mean, we never talked about the Timmy Satriano, uh,
In
little
the office?
interaction in the conference
In the
room
office? Yeah.
where,
Yeah.
where
No, I
Kaplan
love Diddy too.
Kaplan comes up to me. He's like, "I need help. Get in here. These guys are gonna kill each other." But I mean, to your point, a lot of big personalities. Um, so there was a drive in these people, but at the same time, everybody that I know that was fighting in that office and was working hard has gone on and done well.
Mm.
But I also had opportunities inside the organization. So I feel like watching my own. I mean, they promoted me in 2 years to AMP. 4 years after that to the district director role for the national account. So I felt like, look, they were holding up their end of the bargain. I need to hold up my end. And you know what? If I was had a great attitude and I was working like crazy, and I knew I could look in the mirror and say, I know I'm not only doing what they're asking, but I'm trying to bring solutions to the table. I'm trying to help the organization. I'm going above and beyond. And I'm in here for years and nothing's happening. Well, then that's a professional decision everyone's got to make. But
Sure.
you got to look in and say, hey, is this, am I pulling up my end of the
Yeah.
deal? You know what I mean?
And so I'm going to go back. Sorry, I clearly think of something. So you just mentioned your son's getting into sales,
Right.
and I'm sure you're coaching him.
Yep.
And it's clearly a different world today than it
Yep.
was 30 years ago. What's the advice you're giving him? Like, because he's not you, clearly.
Right.
He's going to
Yeah.
have his own personality. He's got
Yep.
his own attributes. What do you tell him? What's your advice to him?
So for him, I have two different perspectives, right? I've got a work perspective and I've got a spiritual perspective.
Mm.
So when I'm sending him in there and he's going in there and of course he comes home and tells me and his mom every day about what happened and all this type of stuff. But I'm like, look, you don't know what this person's going through, right? You have no idea what's going on in this person's life. You cannot take anything personal unless you screwed up. If you screwed up, or you did something wrong, or you came late, or you didn't perform correctly, you cannot, look, that's just life. People are going to get crazy. People are going to tell you they're going to sign on the dotted line and they never do. People are going to draw something out 6 months. No, 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 let's do it tomorrow. I'm going to get you in here and we're going to do it tomorrow. And then, but at the same time, you're going to get things that you probably don't deserve. And some good things are going to happen, the old bluebirds, as we used to call them, and things like that. So for him, it's like, do not allow other people to affect what you're doing. You have a job to do every day.
Yeah.
And you go out there and you represent this company, you represent God, you go in there and you work hard and you have a good attitude and you do not let this stuff bring you down, but be prepared. Like we were talking about before, don't go in there and start talking about something you don't know what you're talking about and try to wing it. Like be prepared, be ahead of your competition. Your competition is going to know about that piece of equipment or that latest thing that they're using for cybersecurity or whatever. They're going to know about it. So you better know more. And if you're prepared, you work hard, have a good attitude. Don't let all this stuff affect you. And also don't expect handouts and don't expect it to be easy. I don't know how people think it's like you just go into an office and next thing you know, you're getting bonuses and all this kind of stuff. It doesn't work like that, And if it does, it's not going to last. Trust me. And so, but if you go in there and you put your nose to the grindstone, so to speak, if you're doing everything that your boss is asking you to do, and something that just a good friend and a spiritual mentor to me told me, like, look, you get under authority, you work hard for the person over you, and watch it come back. Watch it come back on you. Watch you get blessed for doing that. And so he's had the combination of he's got two sales parents, you know what I mean? Two salespeople parents, plus a different perspective than I had at that age, And so I feel like he's had his rough days. Trust me, he'll come home and be like, "Yeah, I'm getting fired. this didn't work out." And I'm like, you know what? If you're doing what's right and you're working hard, you have a good then God wants you to go somewhere else. But at the same time, you just hard work. You don't want to sound like an old man. You know what I mean? But I felt like when we were growing up, we all just kind of looked at each other and said, "This is what we got to do." You know what I mean? Like this is part of it. There's a little bit less of that right now, but I'm not saying it's dead. There's always going to be hardworking people. There's always going to be people with good work ethics, but you can't allow that stuff to affect you.
And on the spiritual side, because I think it's a really interesting point, when you give him advice from the spiritual side, what is that advice? Like, what is it that he can be grounded in from the spiritual side on sales, which is really an interesting topic we haven't gotten into, but.
Well, and again, this is all stuff that I learned, at my church. I give all the credit to a good friend of mine, Gwen Lara. Just kind of, her teachings changed my life. But she was always like, look, you get back to like what we were talking about. You may not be the best at all these things, but you could act with morality. You could be somebody who's not a liar. You can make sure that you go in there, and if you say you're going to do something, do it. Act with integrity, honesty, hard work, thinking ahead. Do unto others as you want them to do unto you. The golden rule. If you have that as your mindset, plus you have all the knowledge from your products or what you're offering, plus you're thinking, what does this person want? How can I make their life easier? Plus taking care of your boss, the one above you, like, look, and sometimes that's not hard. I mean, sometimes that's not easy. I mean, sometimes you got different person, and again, God rest his soul. It was just a totally different way of approaching people. It was the first time I had somebody like nose to nose with me about, I'm like, wait, I forgot to put the thing in the plastic sleeve, and we're getting ready to like throw down in the production room. This is just a weird kind of, you know what I mean? But everybody had their thing, and honestly, I let the older guys deal with that because again, I had bills to pay. But with him, I'm like Daniel, like you got to learn. You have to learn people. What's making this guy tick? And if he knows, because I had to learn lessons where I was not listening all the time. I mean, some of those books that we were asked to read, I regret that I took my time reading. You know what I'm saying? I was like, I'll get to them when I get to them. Looking back on it now, if my boss said, "Hey, go read this book," look, I could bang out a book in probably 3 hours. You know what I mean? I could
Yeah.
figure out a way to get it done in a week. And so just jumping on what you're being asked to do, but also thinking above and beyond about what else I could do for the company and for the boss, but also for your clients. I mean, if you
Yeah.
put them before what treat them the way you'd want to be treated. And so golden rule, man, it's still in practice.
Yep, no
Good
doubt.
Well, Ted,
Well, this was
hey,
amazing. Yeah.
oh, shut up, Rap. You just keep talking all the time. The
Things
one thing,
pop
the
up,
one
Timmy,
thing,
you
you
know.
always just like you won't even let me get a word in. So, but Ted, I got to give you kudos, man. I remember you just. I'm gonna say you were the Eminem of fucking icon, because no one ever wanted to get into a verbal banter with you. It was you could make grown men cry. So you get all that credit, man. It's great to see you, man. I'm so happy for your success and your beautiful family and all that, man. And it's good to reconnect with you for sure,
Yeah,
bro.
just a big influence on all of us, Ted. So
Absolutely.
just know that, right?
I love you guys. I love the crowd. One day you need to have one of these things, and it'd be like Hollywood Squares, man. Where
No, I think that's what we talked about that.
No one's
Russ
ever gonna
Van-
get a word in. That's the problem.
That'd be fun. We might do that.
Listen. I'm honored that you guys even asked me to jump on here with you guys. I think the world of both of you guys. I think the world of all those guys that we worked with.
Yeah.
I love them. We still have this. Look at this. I mean, it's like what, 33, 30? It's crazy.
Amazing.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
Know?
It's awesome.
So it is something special.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no doubt. All right, guys, I'm going to stop recording and then stick around for a sec.